The Revolution in America. Samuel Slater, a skilled British mechanic, immigrated to the U.S. After he carefully memorized the designs for the textile mill machines, when he arrived, he sent a letter to Moses Brown, who owned a textile business in New England. Slater claimed he could improve the way of textiles that were manufactured in the U.S. Ellie Whitney. In 1798, inventor Ellie Whitney tried to address some of these problems of the technology. Whitney gave a proposal to mass-producing guns in the U.S. government using water machinery. He came up with the idea of interchangeable parts. Albert Gallatin. In 1810, he suggested some reasons why there were so few factories in the U.S. He believed few people chose to work in a factory if they could own their own farm instead. Francis Cabot Lowell. He was a businessman from New England who developed a different approach to the system. He came up with the Lowell system, which allowed young, unmarried women to work. Sarah G. Bigley. She founded the Lowell Female Labor Reform Association in 1844 and publicized the struggle of factory laborers. Robert Fulton. In 1803, an American named Robert Fulton tested his first steamboat, designed in France. Later, he full-sized commercial the steamboat, the Clement, in the U.S. It was able to go upriver and did not need wind power. It impacted the company by increasing trade because the goods could be moved more quickly and cost more cheap. Peter Cooper. He built the powerful locomotive called the Tom Thumb. Even though the Tom Thumb lost the race, it showed Americans that the locomotive was powerful and fast, and it caused railroad fever. The challenges it faced were it had to go up and down mountains, around tight curves, and over swift rivers. Samuel Morse. In 1832, he perfected the telegraph, which was a device that could send information over wires across great distances. Catherine Green was a plantation owner where workers were using a machine that removed seeds from long staple cotton. The cotton gin caused the demand for slaves to increase because they needed to plant more cotton. Hinton Lowenhelper. He increased the industrial growth in the South. There were a few industries because they faced the stiff competition from the North and from England. Frances Anne Campbell is a British actress from a featured family. The social status of planter and yeoman was different because planters were more wealthy and were able to buy more land and slaves, while the yeomen were poor white Southerners that owned small farms. White wealthy Southerners believed that God created people like themselves to rule over slaves. Solomon Northup. He was a free African American who was kidnapped in Washington, D.C. and sold as a slave and worked as a slave for 12 years until he finally proved his identity and gained his release. Slaveholders would whip the slaves and hurt them to control the slaves. In planters' homes, those slaves would have a job as a butler, cooks, and nurses, and they would have better food, clothing, and shelter, but work longer. Nat Turner, a slave from Virginia that believed that God had told him to end slavery. On 1831, Turner led a group of slaves on a revolt to kill all the slaveholders and their families. That was known as the Nat Turner's Rebellion, which was one of the most violent revolts in the U.S. As a result,
Created using Powtoon.